Well, here we are. It's been nearly 5 years since our last monster champion and nearly 8 since our last Voidborn. To say my expectations for this new champion were astronomical would be that of a comedy joke. I can't remember the last time I was this excited for a new champion, so you can imagine how much of a mental strain it was to prevent myself from being spoiled before the big reveal. And then it got spoiled early anyway, thanks leakers. But now she's here, BelVeth, the Empress of the Void. And does she live up to expectations? Well, no. But actually, yes. But actually, no. But actually, yes. It's complicated. BelVeth is such a roller coaster of a design for me. Simultaneously, there are design choices that make complete sense, but also fall apart entirely when you think about it for a little bit too long. But why is that? Well, that's why I'm here. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into BelVeth's design, character, and lore to see how successful she is at fulfilling her thematic potential. So, to help distinguish what works about BelVeth and what doesn't, first we need to understand who she is. I guess to start, BelVeth isn't technically her actual name. Voidborn are near mindless creatures, they don't really care about stuff like that. Instead, the name of void monsters derive from the Shuriman language. For example, the Voidborn inhabiting the Great Sai Desert are called the xer'sai, and their queen is called rek'sa. It's also why Kai'sa sounds so much like a Voidborn name. It's not because she's a Voidborn, it's because she's Shuriman. In this instance, BelVeth is a name taken directly from the port city in which she first emerged.
The city of BelVeth shall fall first.
She's a Voidborn, and like all the other original Voidborn, she was crafted by the Watchers with a singular purpose. Cho'gath's sole purpose is to consume all life. vel'koz is to absorb knowledge of the physical world, and BelVeth was to act as a Voidborn leader of sorts. Where all this falls apart is the Void's ability to adapt. By consuming matter, these creatures acquire some of the attributes of those they consume. vel'koz looks very similar to the Watchers and the most alien of the Voidborn because he only consumed the bare minimum it took to survive in the physical world. Kha'zix, in contrast, almost looks like he could be a creature from Runeterra because he's adapted so many animalistic traits. And this is an important detail for BelVeth, as she had consumed primarily oceanic life before emerging onto the port city of BelVeth and consuming every single human who lives there. As such, she took on the traits from both aquatic creatures and humans. The aquatic creatures gave her the fishy spawn creatures and the manta ray-esque appearance, but consuming all those humans gave her something incredibly strange for a void creature: sentience. Now, this isn't technically anything new to the Void. vel'koz is also fully aware of his purpose. It's why he isn't fully honest with the Watchers on how much data he's collected or how close he is to completing his mission. It's because he wants to keep learning, he wants to keep exploring. It's why he was the only Voidborn champion to appear in any BelVeth teaser, because he's the only one with enough sentience to realize what BelVeth plans to do. And what she plans to do is a full rebellion against the Void. The Watchers want to destroy all of reality, have things return back to the nice quiet peace that existed for a millennia before that oh-so-painful existence went and made everything so goddamn noisy. BelVeth, on the other hand, with her now more human-y emotions and desires, realizes what a waste that would be. Instead of destroying the world, why not rule over it, remade in her own perfect image? She is completely egomaniacal, believes herself to be superior to all life and her creators, and that she is the true Void, destroying all that lays before her and repurposing it for her own twisted vision, the Lavender Sea as she calls it. She's not only more powerful than any Voidborn we've seen prior, but vastly more intelligent, so far as to have psychic mind-controlling abilities. Remember that whole Shuriman naming thing I was talking about? Yeah, BelVeth? That's not something designated to her by Shurimans. She chose that name, something once thought impossible by Voidborn standards. And you know what else was once thought impossible for Voidborn to do? Bargain. No joke, in her short story, BelVeth offers aid to Kai'sa in helping defeat the Watchers once and for all. In exchange for this partnership, she will graciously spare humanity from her rule. For a time, you know, maybe a decade or a year or a month, you know, maybe for a minute or two. That sounds good, right? She goes on so far as to give Kai'sa hope that for a brief moment after the Watchers fall, humanity will find a weapon that can slay her or a hero that can face her, fully confident in the fact that she's nigh unstoppable and almost cocky about it to an extent. And even though you could argue vel'koz is pretty intelligent, this is a whole new level of personality shifting for Voidborn. So at the end of that, what do we get? What are BelVeth's key defining features as a character? She's an egomaniacal, incredibly intelligent Voidborn, capable of immense psychic ability, that consumed oceanic life but primarily consumes human matter to further her own goals, in hopes of destroying the Watchers so that she can rule over all of Runeterra. All in all, she's a pretty unique character for League. Another to add to the pile of world-ending threats to Runeterra, but still, I like it a lot. But of course, we've seen this time and again. Some champions will have absolutely amazing lore, whereas their designs leaves a bit to be desired. So, does BelVeths Design live up to her lore? BelVeths Design is creative, I think I'll call it. Truthfully, I have a hard time deciding whether I like it or not because it has so many things right and wrong about it. So let's start with the positives. The Manta Ray-esque design is very unique for League of Legends and makes her incredibly distinct from the other Voidborn. It finally moves modern Void aesthetics away from the generic bug-like Zerg and Tyranid designs Riot so graciously borrowed. It does a great job hailing back to how Voidborn take on attributes of those that consume. So she takes on aspects of oceanic life from where she first originated, and she takes on human characteristics from the city she devoured. And speaking of human characteristics, I do think what they did with her human form is very clever. Her fins, wings coiling around her body in such a way to mimic an elegant gown, her horns acting as spiky pauldrons, her... wait a minute. Wait a minute. And the pretty head on top solidifying her facade. Of course, it doesn't look quite right. She sways back and forth to mimic walking even if it's plainly obvious she isn't. Her hair is very visibly made of tentacles and her face has seams down the middle as if she were a doll. Her lips don't move to match the words she speaks. It's very clear the voice coming out of her is not actually coming from that human mouth. Well, it's obvious she's not really human. She does a great job of lying to the viewer and the characters in the universe. Well, obvious it's not real to us in a world of fantasy creatures. From a glance, this lie could easily be mistook as normality and therefore a successful lure. Oh my God. Here's the thing about BelVeth and lies. In her short story Pinwheel, we got a bit of an insight into her mind at a pinnacle moment of the story. BelVeth, in an attempt to scramble Kai'Sa's mind further, reveals to her that her father Kassadin is still alive. Now, this doesn't seem like a huge revelation, but for those who aren't aware, the modern Kassadin and Kai'Sa we know today have never actually met each other. It's been around a decade since Kai'Sa fell into the void, and after all the corruption, bodysuits, and general aging, there's a very high chance if either of them met, they wouldn't even be able to recognize each other.
Have we met?
Kinda makes Kassadin's whole character arc a bit pointless, but I digress. Kai'Sa's quick to call BelVeth out on her lies, to which BelVeth responds, "I do not lie, Kai'Sa. I have no need. The Void's eventual triumph is an unshifting absolute. It demands no lies, half-truths, or questions. Open your mind, and I will show you." Keep in mind, she is in her true monster form while saying this to Kai'Sa. Why? Because she doesn't lie. She's telling Kai'Sa the truth while showing her the truth. So why then does BelVeth have an entire form built around a lie, especially a physical one? She has incomprehensible psychic and telepathic abilities. If she really wanted to deceive someone in this way, acting as a lure, she wouldn't need a physical change. She could easily rewire your mind to make you submit to her. It's exactly what she did to Malzahar. And even so, why is she deceiving people in the first place? The fake head, fake hair, fake thighs. She's the most powerful Voidborn in Runeterra. She could kill you before you'd even blink if she wanted to. But instead, she has this weird facade, making her a shape-shifting purple lady who lures people in with her charms to ultimately kill them. Wait a second, this is just Evelyn again! And that becomes even more apparent when we look at BelVeth's concept art. Thank God the devs decided to go in a different direction, cause holy shit. Our first monster champion in nearly 5 years, constantly told by Riot, "Oh, don't worry, it's on the way, just be patient," and it would end up looking like this? And Lord knows if this is the best they could do for a monster champion in 2022, who knows what kind of Genshin Impact gacha character we're gonna get in the next one for 2031. What? She's not our promised monster champion. She just became more monstrous as the design process went along. Huh. To be honest, the fact that BelVeth isn't our promised monster champion, but instead a sexy humanoid character who became more monstrous over time, improves her 100 times over in my eyes. And while her character design philosophy still crumbles if you think about it even just a little bit, I can't help but appreciate the goodwill of the developers on this one. I'd like to think they heard the outcry from the community for a new monster champion and found a clever way to, kind of, give us just that instead of Evelyn with tentacle hair. So in the end, did Riot make the monster champion we've all been waiting for? Well, yes, but actually no. Like TB Skyen said, BelVeth is Riot trying to have their cake and eat it too. But so much of what makes BelVeth great also completely contradicts her design. A fully sentient Voidborn trying to take over the world on her own is a neat twist, but she's relegated to Runeterran world-ending threat number 5000. The human head as a lure is a neat concept hailing back to her consumption of sea life and how Voidborn become what they eat, kind of like an anglerfish, but it's entirely pointless when she could just mind control you instead. She has immense psychic abilities and is in control of an entire army of Voidborn, and yet her gameplay is entirely centered around Chris rocking people to death. So as a monster champion, yeah, BelVeth is a bit of a disappointment. But that's because she was never meant to be our promised monster champion. That one is still on its way, likely coming out sometime early next year. So she's not a monster champion, and in fact, she does a good enough job at playing both sides of the coin, although of course, I do wish Riot favored the monster form slightly more. They changed the icon from initially being of her true form to her fake human head for visual clarity, which... What? All of the marketing, both on her teaser images and her splash art, focus on the fake head, and gameplay-wise, she's only in her true form temporarily. All of that together, I can't help but be saddened by it. She was never meant to be a monster champion, but she's so close to being one. I really think it would have been best for Riot to just bite the bullet and make her a full-on Voidborn. So I don't love her, but I don't hate her either. It kind of puts her right in the middle, which is kind of ironic for this year's champion releases, because I absolutely love Renata in every way conceivable, but you couldn't get me to care about xer'sai if you paid me to. But those are my thoughts. What do you guys think of BelVeth? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. Do you like her for what she is? Do you wish they'd gone further in either direction of her design? Like me, are you at the very least happy we finally got a new Voidborn? Wait a second. We haven't had a monster champion in 5 years, and she was never meant to be that monster champion, but that still means Riot had fully intended on our first Voidborn in nearly 8 years to be another sexy lady. Are you fucking kidding me?